I healed myself of tumors like 3 times. And my first tumor I got at only age 19. And it was after the sudden shocking death of my brother a couple of years earlier by suicide. When people come to me with the cancer and they say, Paula, what's the secret? Well, the first thing I'll ask them is, where's the tumor? From where the tumor is, then I know what the emotion is. That's what both my Indian guru and my Tibetan masters wanted me to do. I have a gift to help people really see through the ruse of ego and of karma. And the Chinese, they were ready. There's frequencies that harm us very badly and frequencies that will heal us completely. And here's what we need to understand. The ego's only the map. You are that. And my whole life, my goal has been one thing, enlightenment only. I want full-on, nonstop enlightenment. Nothing else matters to me. Once you really see through the illusion of karma, the illusion of ego, everything will change. Everything becomes so much easier.
This morning, I had the great pleasure of interviewing Dr. Paula Horan. And what you're about to hear is not your typical conversation about wellness. Paula has spent decades walking the edges between the East and the West, between psychology and mysticism, between the mind and the body. She was the person that brought Reiki to India in 1989, and she also spent years working with different gurus, including Papaji, a teacher who's known for his work on non-dual awareness. She healed herself from breast tumours and from epilepsy using methods that most doctors won't discuss with you. And this June, she's bringing all of it, the lineage, the science and the silence, to Costa Blanca for 2 retreats. More information on that in the link in the description. But for now, we're going to talk about the invisible patterns that keep you stuck, why karma is in the body and not just your mind, and what it actually feels like to wake up. Dr. Paula, welcome. So maybe we can start by just telling us a little bit about your journey and how you got into alternative healing, because you trained originally in psychology, in Western psychology in London and in California. So what then changed your direction and you decide to go into more of an Eastern approach?
Right. There were a combination of things. Well, the thing is, I did go to university in England. In the early 70s. It's kind of interesting. I was living with a bunch of druids, you can imagine, out in the countryside. And while I was in college, and they introduced me to amazing things. They introduced me to Wilhelm Reich and orgone energy. And we even built an orgone energy box. We used to sit in that, to feel all the cosmic rays. But it was just so interesting because they taught me about orgone. They taught me about Royal Rife's work. And that is incredible. Royal Rife, what he did is he would figure out the vibratory frequencies of a disease, like say cancer, or whatever. And then he would create the opposite frequency. He created what's called a Rife machine, which would then send out the opposite frequencies. And then he could even melt a tumor overnight. Okay. Wow. He's done that, like my friend, I have a friend here, one of the things I travel with is an orgone generator. It's a round circular thing that has a whole setup of different crystals. It's basically a crystal grid encased in resin. And then you hook it up with a little computer plug to the computer, where you have a tone generator, the kind of tone generators that musicians use. I'm not a musician, so I don't know exactly how they use it, but the way I use it is you can put up to 16 frequencies in a tone generator, okay? And then but each of the Rife frequencies, there's a combination of, I think it's 11 frequencies for every disease. Yeah. And I have a dictionary of 3,000 diseases, okay? If you can imagine. And then you just figure out which is the set for that particular thing, so many different kinds of cancer, so many different kinds of this and that.
And is it because it's killing parasites, or is it just because it's a certain frequency?
Well, you know what? Hulda Clark's parasite deal she got her idea from Royal Rife's work. Okay. And one of my students I inspired many years ago to manufacture them. And I'll tell you a story about one. It was really trippy. I was going to Mauritius in the mid-90s or something, and I had these dear friends there, and it was so sad. I arrived in Mauritius, and their beautiful teenage daughter had just died. And all she had was like the flu or something like that, and then she expired. And she had been living with her sister and brother-in-law. Okay, she was like 16, 17 years old only. And I literally arrived on the day of the funeral. It was so sad. It just happened so fast. And then what happened was the brother-in-law started getting the same symptoms, getting a bad fever, basically flu symptoms. Okay. Yeah. And I always would travel with my zapper, it's called. Yeah. And it puts out a frequency that takes out flukes. Flukes are some kind of parasite humans have had forever. But unfortunately, already 20, 30 years ago, because of the crap in the air and all the pollution we are forced to be in all the time, flukes now no longer just go right through our intestines and out. They get into other areas of the body. Okay. And so anyway, that guy, I said, listen, you put the copper things on you right between your groin and where the fold in the legs are. I said, just leave it there all night. You just leave it on. Because normally you would just use it like 20 minutes, take a little break, do another 20 minutes. But I said, you just leave it on. That guy, he sweated through 5 sets of sheets in one night. Yeah. And then it was gone. He probably, and you know what she died of? She died from these when they did an autopsy, what had happened is that she had got these parasites in her brain, ate her brain up. That's what happened. Yeah. She died from parasites eating her brain. Okay. Yeah. And so the zapper literally killed off those parasites in her brother-in-law. Thank God. So that's when the experiences I've had taught me frequencies work. Yeah. And here's what we need to understand, though. There's frequencies that harm us very badly, like 5G, 4G, 3G, 2G, all of them are harmful, very harmful. But there's frequencies that'll heal us, completely, that are really good. Yeah. And so big change happened for me, it was when I did Reiki, right?
Yeah, because you've written several books on Reiki.
Exactly, because then I realized, so long before I did Reiki, I was learning about all these amazing frequency machines that heal the body. Okay, when did I learn Reiki? That was in 1986, I think it was. Yeah, so I was working on my doctorate already. One of my professors at university had created his own institute called the Institute of Psychostructural Balancing. He'd learned stuff like Geralt. He'd learned Chuaka. I don't know if some people may have heard of that. Chuaka is
I've never heard of it.
Okay, Chuaka is an ancient form of Mongolian self-massage. Now we all know the Mongolians were the strongest, most fierce warriors on the planet, right? We've heard those stories. I mean, they went all the way from China to Europe. They invaded everyone. And what they would do, why they were so fearless, is that every night after battle, they'd sit around the campfire, right? And then what they do is they take their knuckle or their thumb and they'd go like, here, I'll show you. And they'd go into the end of every toe, digging right in, and then they would go over each.
Reflexology.
What?
It's like reflexology, because you do that in reflexology.
Oh yeah, but except you're doing the whole skeleton. They would do the whole skeleton to the bone. They're not massaging the muscles. They're doing the bones. Okay, right to the bone. Yeah. And so anyway, like say if they'd seen their best friend's hand or head chopped off, for God's sake, that day, they'd be freaked, right? Right. So what doing this particular type of work does, it brings you back to that memory. So you're forced to complete it, to remember it, feel it fully, and let it go. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
See, this is what happens. See, what totally controls us, which I was going to get into karma, but this comes here up now. There's only 2 motivations in life for everything. Either desire, incomplete desires, or resistance. And resistance is always to trauma karma, some kind of karma that we not completed. All karma is incomplete experience. Okay.
Okay.
Nothing more than that. And there's only two kinds. Again, incomplete desire, like when I wrote my book, Abundance Through Reiki, way back when in the late 80s, early 90s, I used to, for 10, 15 years, I used to do an abundance workshop, which I'm actually doing in a couple of days right here in Shantiniketan.
Yeah.
I'm finally bringing that back. See, for 15 years, I've focused on abundance, abundance, abundance. All right. And it is it has a 42-day program, which takes you also into non-dual awareness. My whole thing is, the teachings of non-dual awareness. So I want to help people get enlightened, disidentify with three things: ego and the two sides of karma. And there's only, again, desire and resistance. So once we complete, our resistance stuff, it creates the space inside of us. And when also complete the desires, like even my guru Papaji used to say, he'd say, let the desires play, just don't get identified. So like say some young guy in my class and he wants to make $1 million. I said, great, well, you make your $1 million, And it's interesting because, when I first moved to China, I taught years in India from like 89 until about, when was it? 2010 or so. Then all of a sudden I was just being invited. It was interesting. All of a sudden things got really flaky in India and everybody wanted to do angel cards and woo-woo, no more substance. Before that, Indians only wanted the real thing. Now they're back to the real thing, by the way.
Maybe because they saw that that's what the Americans were doing and they thought it was cool. So then they were taking on.
Perhaps. Yeah, exactly. And it was something like that. So then I went to China, and that was interesting, the timing of China, because already there were many Chinese who'd made a fortune, because, the powers that be moved all the industry in America and Australia to China years ago, right?
Yeah.
Creating poverty in America, but bringing abundance into China. So they were all abundant by the time I hit China. And that was, but they'd been there, done that, made their millions. Now they wanted something real, right? Which was awaken, enlightenment. Okay. And that's what I'm here for. That's what both my Indian guru and my Tibetan masters wanted me to do. I have a gift to help people really see through the ruse of ego and of karma, which is the main thing you've got to do to have a direct experience of what you are. And the Chinese, they were ready. I had so many wealthy students who were bored, I guess the point I wanted to make is that, it's like when you look at a lot of the really great masters, enlightened masters, Shakyamuni Buddha is a case in point. Gautama Buddha, he was a prince. He had everything, right? And there had been two prophecies of, that he was going to be, he was supposed to be the king, right? His father wanted him to take over and be king. But no, he was going to be a spiritual king. And the father was freaked out about that. So he kept Gautama Buddha totally distracted as a young man with dancing girls around him all the time, going out, shooting, hunting, fighting, trying to make him be the normal prince guy, right? But then one day he goes out and he sees somebody's dead body on the street or something, and he sees people sick. He never saw these things. His father always kept him around really cool things, only would not, he knew otherwise he'd end up as a spiritual guy, which he did anyway. So he finally, as we all know, left the palace. The only difference in the story is most people think, he left, he showed her his wife in the middle of the night with a baby. No, she was the brilliant one that kicked him out the door and said, go do your job. Okay. She was obviously, huh?
I didn't know that part.
Most people don't. She was actually a great yogini, his wife. And see, because one thing I know, you see, we live in a fortunate era of 1,000 Buddhas, right? And Shakyamuni Buddha is only the fourth of 1,000. But and here's the deal. In this time of 1,000 Buddhas, there's only going to be 3 Vajrayana Buddhas.
What does that mean? Sorry.
I'll tell you.
For normal everyday lay person.
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, there's 3 kinds of Buddhism. There's Hinayana, there's Mahayana, and there's Vajrayana. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, Hinayana is kind of like you work on enlightenment for yourself. It's like all focused on you, doing a lot of meditation, quieting your mind, and then for your own enlightenment. But what Mahayana, the second type, introduces to you is the bodhisattva thing, where you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for all beings, which actually starts to help you realize that there is no separation between you and all beings. We're all
like in the
fractals of a
Matrix
whole.
when they say there is no spoon.
There's no what?
In the movie The Matrix, when they say there is no spoon.
Spoon. Right, exactly. Yeah. Some of my students taught me how to bend spoons with my mind. That was so fun. Actually, Joseph Pierce, one of my professors, we were doing spoon bending. Right. There is no spoon. There ain't nothing. It's all vibratory frequencies happening according to what we are projecting, on reality. It's our projection. And we're powerful beings, much more so than we ever know because of the crap we've been brainwashed with for millennia. That's the sad part. But we're coming out of it now. and Vajrayana, that's what takes you there. But let me finish the Mahayana. Mahayana, what it does, it helps you see the reality of emptiness, that ego is empty. See, to become enlightened, there's three things you got to do. You've got to drop all your attachment to ego. Think about it. What is ego? Ego is only like a compilation of thoughts of who we think we are, right? That's what ego is.
They're not there to protect us. It's like something happens and we feel hurt. So then the ego like kind of.
Right. But the problem is the ego is only the map. It's like if I point at the moon, you've got to stop looking at my finger and see the moon beyond it, right? It's the same with the ego. The ego is only the map to tell you where to go and to help you get there and so on. But ultimately, you have to let go of it to get what you truly are. Yeah. You are that. What you are is so beyond concept, right? And ego can only understand concepts. So you've got to drop all your attachment to ego if you want to wake up. And the other two things are the karma, the two aspects of karma. You've got to drop attachment to all your desires and all your resistance, right? Because, as Papaji used to say, let the desires play, okay? Just don't get identified, okay? Don't identify with them. Hello? You want your $1 million bucks? Go get it. Cool. Yeah. Do it. But don't get identified, right? And my whole life, my goal has been one thing, enlightenment only. I want full-on, nonstop enlightenment, Basogya, that's all I want. Nothing else matters to me. I might as well get into that story of how I met Papaji, man. That was so amazing.
So Papaji, that was your guru.
Yeah. See, and it's funny because before I met him, I'd already had an experience in a Gurdjieff community. Yeah. And I had been in Vancouver, BC. I stayed in a Gurdjieff community for, about 6 months or so. And then some other things happened. So it kind of was a disappointment. And I don't want to spend too much on that detail of that. Although I gained tremendous amount from them too. They taught me a lot. They really helped me a lot. But at a certain point, they were just, the one thing is that the leader of the community had never dealt with his daddy stuff. Okay. And so as a result, nobody else did either. And I saw that clearly, and finally I just had to leave. And I was about to write a book called The Age of the End of Gurus, when I met Papaji. And that was, and I heard about him from some friends this one woman, Tony, and her husband, Eli. Eli and I had some of the same students in Europe and Hungary and Germany, but I'd never met them. One of my boyfriends at the time knew them really well. It's funny, they lived in Hawaii and I was in Hawaii too, but we were never there at the same time. And to this day, I never met her. But anyway, I heard about the amazing event where Tony was or rather Eli was the one that was so really passionate about Papaji, but it was Tony, his wife, who actually really woke up in Papaji's presence. So anyway, my boyfriend Ken said, "God, Paula, you got to go meet Papaji. You have to meet Papaji. he's just an amazing man. You got to go meet him. Okay, okay, okay. So I did. And I remember taking a letter, because the way it worked, if you wanted to go in front of him and ask questions, you had to write a letter, and then they would give him all the letters. So all of a sudden he pulls out my letter, and it's interesting too, because was there going to be there only 3 days. And the first day I went, I was totally turned off because there were a bunch of sannyasins there, because Osho had passed away the year before that, actually. And I had been to the Osho ashram, and I loved Osho, by the way, absolutely loved Osho, but I didn't like the whole, I don't know how to explain it, the scene. It felt like really spiritual arrogance in a lot of the people around him. And so I felt that way after my first day with Papaji. It was all the same type of people. And then I saw this guy sitting at the hotel I was at that I had seen that day. And I went over and talked to him. And it turns out this was a guy who'd known him for years. And I explained my reaction. And he said, "Hey, please go back. You write a letter." He says, "Ignore all the people. There's always a circus around real gurus." Forget the circus. You just go for yourself. Don't waste this chance. Write a letter. So I did. And I hope people are taking that, so if you find a real guru and you're seeing that kind of scene, just go back, deal directly with the guy or a woman. And so I did. And on my letter, I wrote, I really want to wake up in this life, but I know I have tremendous resistance. That was the main gist of it. And so what he did is he crosses out, but I have a lot of resistance. And then he turns it, puts it in my face and said, "What did you say here? What do you want?" He says, "I want enlightenment in this life." And then he looks at me and says, "What do you need?" And I have to give you the context of this statement. That was the kicker question for me. Why? See, because I had this bossy father who was an amazing man. I mean, he was a genius. He got into Harvard at age 15 and all these things, super genius, and was making me debate politics and these things when I was like 9 years old and stuff. And he was a bit overbearing, and so it was like I always had this thing. I love men, but I didn't want to be controlled by them, It's like, so, to say I could always say to a man, "I love you," but I could never say, "I need you." Right? No, I don't need this shit. I don't need it at all. Right? So when Papaji put that question to me, "What do you need?" It was powerful. You get my drift. I was like, holy crap, I need a guru. I realized that, yes. But I was too afraid to admit it, because I was too afraid to be overpowered or whatever. But I said, and I just went into tears and said, I looked in his eyes and I said, "I need you." And that was it. Love at first sight. I was like, and it was like a relief. I'd let go of my resistance. I had so much, that was the resistance. He hit on my resistance, which was asking for what I need. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, and I've seen, witnessed over the years, a lot of people have that. When I lead my core empowerment retreat, I see sometimes people have that great fear of asking for what they need.
I think there's the fear that the person, like, it's really hard to ask somebody for something, and then if that person says no, it's like
that too. Yeah, exactly. Right. Sure. But here's the thing, and I also share too, is that when you're in a relationship with somebody, the truth is they need to know that you need them. Just in the same way you need to feel needed. We each need to feel needed, but we don't like neediness. What really is not nice is when you have somebody clawing onto you, needy. And people only become needy because they can't just say, "I need you." Simply, "I need you." In a very beautiful, simple way, And so, that day, Papaji really got right to it for me, right to the point.
That was the beginning of your journey in India.
Oh yeah, the real beginning then. Yeah, because then I decided to move to Lucknow and
Yeah.
be there in Satsang, and which I did for the next 6 years. And so I would be there for like 3 weeks, and I was already teaching Reiki. I feel it was Reiki that enabled me to feel not who, but what he was, because I quieted my mind. Because here's the deal: before, shortly before that, I was always multitasking before that was even a phrase. Okay.
Yeah.
I would do so many things all at once, because of the way I was trained by my father, all over the place. And then finally, after Reiki, I learned, 'cause the beauty of Reiki is that when you give people treatments, it's like it takes you right into a meditative state, you know? And so
Yeah.
finally, my mind began to get quieter and quieter. I was, just with Reiki. And of course, being with someone like Papaji, then you really go into deep silence, eventually too. But just the Reiki experience for me was so profound. That's when I decided only to teach Reiki. Because after 2 days, my 4 empowerments with Kate, Nani, my amazing Reiki master, she's incredible, being herself, really. Oh, wow. Uh, and I'll give you an example. My very first treatment after the Reiki class, I was working on an artist friend of mine she was really depressed because she hadn't had any ideas for her art for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And she was in this really stuck place. And I gave her a treat. She called me the next morning and she said, Paula, what was that Reiki thing you did on me yesterday? She says, because I would always just do body work on her. But then after I learned Reiki, I would start doing all treatments with Reiki, then body work on both sides, and then with Reiki. And she said, I don't know what you did, but last night I went home. I did an entire sketch and a third of a painting. She says, it is unbelievable. It's like whatever it was, it blew out that block.
Was it like you released some kind of energy blockage?
Right.
Yes.
And it helped her do that. And she was so taken by it. And so was I, because as a psychologist, I thought, wow, this is really powerful stuff. This is doing instant consciousness work. I don't even, all I have to do is listen to where the body's drawing the energy the most. And it's effortless, totally effortless.
Yeah.
And so I thought, this beats all psychology totally. This is what I'm going to teach. And so then I worked on second degree, and oh my God, what that cleared, because that clears a lot of karma, second degree.
Yeah.
And then, by the end of the year, I had done third degree, and then I went off and I started touring all over the world for 7 years nonstop. I even gave up my apartment in San Diego. I put everything in storage. And I would stay with my sisters in California when I was doing America. I would stay with my father in Germany when I was traveling across Europe. And finally, I made it to India in '89. That was my first trip here. And then I didn't get back till '92. And that's when I stayed, because that's when I met Papaji. And I hardly ever went back to the West.
I heard in an earlier interview that you did that you healed yourself from cancer. Was that using Reiki, or was that a different?
The first time I did it, well, yeah, that's a good question. I healed myself of tumors like 3 times. And that was always, and I'll tell you, this is some of the body work stuff that's really important to understand. It's like, and why that's so helpful. And also EFT is really helpful. See, disease like cysts or tumors and things like that only get stuck in parts of the body where emotions are stored and contracted. Yeah. The emotional withholding causes muscular contractions in the body. Like, for example, my first tumor I got at only age 19. And it was after the sudden shocking death of my brother a couple of years earlier by suicide, which was pretty intense for my whole family. I didn't complete all my grieving of his death. So a lot of that contraction in my heart, because basically when women get breast tumors, it has to do with some kind of heartfelt hurt, that
Yeah.
needs. So I always tell people, when people come to me with the cancer and they say, Paula, I hear you killed yourself 3 times. What do what's the secret? I said, well, the first thing I'll ask them is, where's the tumor?
Yeah.
From where the tumor is, then I know what the emotion is. Because, like, for example, in my very first Reiki book I wrote way back in the 80s, it's called Empowerment Through Reiki. In chapter 16, I have these emotional map of the body.
Yeah.
And where different types of emotions are stored. And so then when you know where the emotions are stored, you know what the issue is that you need to complete.
Right.
So in my case, I needed to complete that time the emotions around my brother's death. Then detox, which I did raw food diet, Gerson therapy. But I didn't do that stupid raw baby calf's liver. I would never eat animals and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't judge anybody who still eats meat, but it's very, very clear to me that whatever you eat, you take on their energy. I mean, it's weird. I'm at this point where I even feel bad plucking plants. I want to become a breatharian. I'm not kidding. So I don't have to eat it all. We can literally live off sunlight, and that's one of my goals, by the way. I want to do that eventually when I have time to focus. And we were getting there. My friend Ranjan and I, we were doing the Nature Cure diet, which is basically like vegan diet, but I like to use the term Nature Cure better. But yeah, you just eat raw food, man. There's only one way we get sick. Basically, it's this. When we get toxins in the body, in the cells in the body, then the cells, what they do is they dump those toxins into what's called the interstitium, which is the space between the cells, right?
Yeah.
And in that space is there's interstitial fluid, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happens is the body then catches on fire. In other words, we heat up to burn up the toxins in the interstitial fluid. That's flu. That's what the flu is. Flu is not a disease. People have to get this. You don't need a goddamn vaccination to cure yourself of the flu. The flu is a detox process in itself. And your body needs that fever to burn up the toxins so that you get healed automatically. Yes. Same with a cold, only the cold is focused on your respiratory system, on the sinuses, the bronchioles, and all of that. And so you don't need a freaking antihistamine to dry up your snot. You need to blow it out. That's the point of the snot, to take all the disease particles out of your lungs and the respiratory system, etc. Okay? And if you care to do your research, you'll find out, guess what? Our body is only 10 to 20% human RNA and DNA. The rest of us is only 3 things, basically. Viruses, bacteria, and fungi. So viruses are our friends. Hello. It's what we're made out of. And yes, if you take a petri dish of something, of a diseased area, you'll get some flaky viruses. But viruses they're not a disease. They're not even alive. They're like a freaking scab on your knee. So how the hell can they make you sick? I ask you. They can't. And it's a sick joke. It's a sick joke, all this crap that's going on. I mean, there's people out there.
You didn't get the COVID virus, the vaccine. Huh? I mean, I'm guessing you didn't get the COVID vaccine.
Hell no. No way, Jose. Okay? And no, because I had all these vaccines given to me at age 6. And guess what they did to me? They caused me to get grand mal epilepsy when I turned 13.
Wow.
And no American doctor knew this. Okay? It's like, why am I having epilepsy? And they said, well, we don't know. All these girls going into puberty are getting epilepsy these days. Well, guess what? 10 years later, I'm in Japan. I was a ballet and jazz dancer when I was young, and I was doing a show.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was teaching English to about 5 or 6 Japanese doctors in the area. And I told them, listen, I'm going to be going to Nepal soon. And my American doctor said, I've got to get vaccinated. And they begged me. They said, Paula-chan, no, you never, ever, 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 ever get any vaccine of any kind. I said, huh? What do you mean? They said, look, until MacArthur's army, at the end of World War II, brought vaccines to Japan, there was no sudden infant death syndrome, no SIDS. There was no autism, none of that crap until vaccines. Do not get any vaccines. And I was so stupid. I was so brainwashed. I insisted they give me a freaking cholera shot. That night after my show, I had the worst seizure in my life. I spazzed out all over, and I wake up and my 6 Japanese doctors are sitting there over my body saying, Paula John, repeat after us. I will never, ever, ever have a vaccine again. Say it. I will never. You're when you have a seizure, okay? I'm like, I learned my lesson then. I went home. I did my research. That was 1978. And I read and I went, holy crap. It was all lies. The whole polio thing. Salk himself had said, I will never give this to my children. Hello. Polio was virtually wiped out by the 50s. Hello.
Yeah.
And guess what? 490,000 Indians became paralyzed. Yeah, they were paralyzed by polio vaccine. 490,000 Indians between 2000 and 2017. And they were getting sick before that. Because when I was at Papaji in the 90s, I remember 60 babies ending up in hospital in Calcutta with spinal meningitis, which was actually right after a polio vaccine drive. Because spinal meningitis and polio have the same symptoms. Okay. So every time people got sick with polio, they just call it spinal meningitis. Hello?
Yeah.
That's what's been going on. We've been lied and lied and lied to for 140 freaking years. Hello. Yeah.
So coming back to your epilepsy, have you healed that now? You don't have epilepsy
Oh,
anymore?
yeah. It finally went away after 15 years. By age 27, it finished. Thank God.
Okay. And what
If
do
I
you
get
think
to
was
go-
cured
Huh?
that? What do you
Huh?
think it was healed the epilepsy?
Well, part of it was like I would learn to tune in with people's calm brain waves. I could stop the seizure once it started going. Then I would tell anybody next to me, please start talking to me. Because when you talk, you have to focus your mind to say something, right? And I would focus on the focusing of someone's mind, and that would stop it. So I was able to actually stop my seizures consciously. But eventually they just stopped of their, own accord.
No one is smart.
One doctor figured it was because of certain hormonal changes that happen at about that age in your late 20s. And things settle in, or I don't know, whatever. But finally they ended. And because my boyfriend was always afraid I was a sailor in those days, and I lived in the, in San Diego Bay, and he was so terrified I was going to fall out of the boat one night and have a seizure.
Yes.
Yeah, it usually only happened once a month, though, exactly 1 week before I'd start my period. So it had something to do with the hormones, right?
Yeah.
Hormones had been screwed up by the vaccinations I had at age 6. That's what happened. That's what the Japanese doctors told me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned EFT for a little while. Can you explain to us a little bit about
Yeah,
what is EFT?
thank you for bringing me back to that. Because here's the deal. Once you get sick, you want to look at where is the sickness in the body, as I mentioned earlier. And then what you need to do is you need to do emotional clearing of what created the contraction there in the first place. Like I've had 3 tumors. The first one, as I said, was created as a reaction to my brother's shocking death. The second tumor was created to the end of an emotional withholding of my grief at the end of an 8-year relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next one in the ovary was that was bringing up memories from a heavy duty sexual past life trauma, which, by the way, I've become a great expert in helping people complete that kind of thing with EFT.
Okay.
I do a 16-day, online training with people, which is really powerful. First, we do 3 weekends where I'm teaching, and I take guinea pigs from my class, and I get always the most traumatized one, and then we all tap with them. Because see, all of us, we have basically the same karma. It's just that it comes up for us at different points in time. So it's really powerful when you tap with someone who's really, I always try to pick what I call the juiciest one, and then that really stimulates people and they can relate to it as they're tapping along with that person. And so in week one, we deal with all our mommy and daddy stuff because see, your two basic role models in life are mom and dad, right? And so for women, understand it's always mothers attract the sons and fathers attract the daughters into birth. So I always make women deal with their daddy stuff first, then mom. But with men, you have to deal with your mommy stuff, then father. Like that. And once you clear the mommy daddy stuff, man, you end up clearing up all your relationship problems with your spouse. That's the cool thing about it. Okay. But I also want to cut back to the importance of dealing with the emotional issues of like cancer, Cancer forms wherever, gets stuck in the body, wherever you have emotions hidden. So my advice to people is always, number one, complete all the emotional issues in that area that are generally held in that area of the body. Yeah. And so EFT is the ultimate tool for that, as far as I'm concerned. I'll get rid of it in one session. Okay, you don't have to go to 10. One. Yeah. And then you detox. I will not take these heavy duty allopathic medicines or anything like that because most of them are all loaded with graphene oxide now. I just had to get a whole series of chelation treatments, okay, that sucks the heavy metals and crap like that out of your body. Why? Because I had to get a lot of dental treatments in the last 2 years. And you know what I found out? That all of the anesthetic in dentistry worldwide is loaded with graphene oxide, hydrogel, all the bad things they put in the vaccines are in that. And I'm like, holy crap. So, I needed to get that out.
All of that, it's in the chemtrails anyway. So we're all being bombarded with it no matter what.
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, we all need to detox every day for the rest of our lives, period. And you know what I'm doing now? Back in the 90s, I experimented with urine therapy. I really urge all of you to go on Dr. Edward Group. He is really wonderful. His website, Dr. Edward Group. He really is promulgating urine therapy. And, one of the ex-prime ministers right here in India, Desai, he lived to be 100, maybe a year over that, because he drank his urine every day. And I've gotten back into that now. So every day I drink, you piss out the first third, then you drink the second third, and then, it's an ancient yogic practice. Hello, urine therapy. See, here's the thing. We're brainwashed. Let me explain something. We are brainwashed that, this is a waste thing. No, it's not. Listen to this. It's the liver that cleans things out, but the kidneys are what manufacture all the vitamins in the exact order that you need them. The kidneys and where's the urine coming from? Your kidneys, isn't it? So what you're getting from your kidneys and the urine is leftover vitamins and things like that you don't need, that were in excess. Okay. So when you drink it first morning, you piss out the first third, you clean everything. Then the second third you catch in a cup, drink it, and then piss out the last third. And the cool thing is if you save your piss too, like a whole big bottle of it for 3 weeks, 21 days, man, it turns into stem cells. Then you give yourself an enema with your stem cell, with your urine, and you're getting a stem cell treatment for free. Hello? And I'm like, what? Stem cells are really important. One of my best friends is one of the top stem cell geniuses on the planet, this doctor friend of mine. He saved me because, see, I lived up near Mount Kailash, at like 4,000 meters for almost 8 years, and it fried I only learned later I was frying my brain cells. Okay. I came down
how was that? How are you frying your brain cells? Sorry, I missed that.
From being at too high elevation for too long. See, here's the deal. I was married to a Tibetan Rinpoche who went into rainbow body. I mean, he was amazing. I mean, I've been so blessed. I've had the highest gurus and partners and, to really help me along. I needed that. Anyway, but for 8 years, I lived so high up. See, here's the cool thing. Tibetans, they have a special DNA and structure that, see, they can live at high elevation and not be affected like the rest of humanity. They're totally different. It's interesting because many years ago, I traveled in the Andes Mountains, and the way they adapted, the Quechuan Indians, they had huge barrel chests. So they adapted their DNA by growing huge lungs. But the Tibetans, they did something else. Their whole body, all the cells in their body readapted. They've done amazing studies on this, some of the science. So basically, they can live at that height and not be bothered. But I'm not a Tibetan. I'm Celtic, right? We're used to being at the seashore catching fish, my ancestors. So I'm not used to that. My DNA wasn't ready for that kind of altitude for so many years. So basically, some of my cells were getting fried, But my friend gave me these special stem cell treatments and helped me regrow my brain cells. That was really cool. But now I can do it for free with my own piss. How can you beat that?
Yeah, I read that if ever you get poisoned, your body creates the antidote, and then if you drink your pee, it has the antidote to the poison.
Absolutely. The best thing to do after a snake bite, immediately get your piss. Boom. Quickly. Yeah. And you know what helped me? See, because I started experimenting way back in the 90s, and I actually healed myself of dengue fever with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're so brainwashed that it's a waste product, blah, 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 that I wouldn't keep doing it, right? So I went on Edward Group's, he's got a bunch of those books, PDF files. So I downloaded 2 and I read them. I forced myself to read them. And it totally deprogrammed my stupid mind from thinking it's a waste product, So I wasn't squeamish anymore. Most people, they tell you about, I tell them to drink their piss and they get really squeamish. I can relate. So did I.
I used to think it was really, really awful. But I used to have a friend, and then my friend used to keep their age-old pee, and then they used to cover their entire body in it and lie out in the sun. So I know people who are really into it.
I did that. She cured herself of cancer with it. She was one of my friends from my Papaji days, right? She was from South America. She was a retired teacher, an older woman at that time, and on a very small pension. She didn't have money to go to doctors. But she did a lot of reading and studying, and so she learned how to use urine therapy, and she cured herself of cancer with urine therapy. Exactly what you just said. She'd store it in jars. She said, I can't even go out in public because, when the older piss really stinks, right? And then she just pour it all over her body, drink it, and she was cured of cancer. Yeah. Didn't cost a penny, right? And now what I do, I use my urine to wash my hair. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And I get a really nice natural, rinses, so that I don't, stink like piss and all that.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't let anything but urine next to my scalp, because everything is so poisoned nowadays. Everything, the air, the earth, it's really sad. I have to eat something, but it's just crazy now. So you got to be detoxing every day. And urine is the cheapest, best medicine on the planet, bar none.
Really. Paula, you're coming here to the Costa Blanca to do a retreat, and you're also going to Italy. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be experiencing at your retreats when you're here?
Absolutely. I'm really excited, because here's the thing, I was told very clearly by Papaji and my Tibetan masters years ago, you are meant to be in Asia. All the Asians, they want to go west now. You were born as a Westerner, and Westerners, we codify teachings very well, and put them in a good logical order. And, and I must admit, all modesty aside, I've created over 40 years an incredible retreat, which helps you examine yourself very thoroughly, get to really know yourself, probably for most people deeply for the first time.
Yeah.
At such depth, put it that way, for full enlightenment, to really experience what we are, the truth of what we are. There are 3 things, as I mentioned right at the beginning of our talk. that we have to deal with. One is to see through. See, there's three aspects of the Buddha. One is the awareness of emptiness. And what that means, awareness of emptiness, is the awareness that there is no separate self. It doesn't really exist. And one of the things I did with Papaji, or with Ramana Maharshi, his guru, is called vichar in Sanskrit. Vichar means direct self-inquiry, where you ask yourself, who am I? Until you see there's no one there. Am I my arm? No, because if that's chopped off, I'm still here, you know?
Yeah.
Am I this? Am I that? But you know what I mean? And until finally you get, there is nothing there. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's like you really see the emptiness in everything. And yet, simultaneously, the total bliss. Bliss equals emptiness, emptiness equals bliss. But I'll tell you something else. Intellect equals ego, ego equals intellect. Okay? So the other thing, so you need to see through the emptiness of ego. Okay? Ego is only a compilation of thoughts of what you think you are, isn't it?
Okay.
It's a compilation of thoughts of what you think you are. Does a thought have any substance whatsoever? Does a thought have substance?
Well, thoughts create now. Thoughts manifest.
Right, that's true. They can get crystallized. They cause things to become crystallized. But in essence, they're empty, isn't it?
Right. Okay.
And you can decrystallize too. And that's what we do in core empowerment. That's what happens. By going in and really examining them, you're literally just decrystallizing. Okay, because it's like, for example, I had severe sexual trauma 3 lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
Badly tortured, kind of like the stuff, the Jeffrey Epstein type stuff we're reading about today. Okay,
Yes.
Most of us have been through that, unfortunately. That's why I created that program, Sacred Sexuality. Half of it is about clearing out everybody's Jeffrey Epstein version of heavy sexual trauma. It's so rampant on our planet, you can't imagine. Okay,
Yeah.
so everybody needs to clear that out. Sacred Sexuality is halfway about clearing out the trauma, and the other is about learning how to be with sexuality. Most people don't know. See, for example, we're all taught in all these stupid magazines to go for peak orgasm. Well, that's a male thing, not the female. Female needs to go for valley orgasm. That means a long, flowing, smooth, slow process, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the highest practices are the sexual practices, but they've been corrupted at times over the years, unfortunately. You know, if you turn sexuality, your way of being with sex, with your partner, into very beautiful, you create a beautiful space, you create a meditative space, and you stop going after peak orgasm crap, you know, and you look for a valley orgasm, okay? Very beautiful meditative state where you can help each other reach higher levels of enlightenment by basically acting as anchors for each other of consciousness and awareness. But you have to do a lot of practice with this before it works. Otherwise, you know, you're always trying to do your peak orgasm thing, and then, you know, and then you get your jollies, and then you're done, and then you're not, you know what I mean? You don't really get something substantial out of it. But what I do is I give teachings, you know, of the partners, if people come as a couple, then that evening they can practice it together and then ask me questions the next day. And singles can come too. There's a lot of meditative practices you can do on your own, so that then later when you do maybe find a partner, like for example, monks and nuns, by the way, they do a lot of sexual practices in their mind with a mental consort, okay?
Yeah. To
stir up the pot, because there's nothing like good sex to, you know, sexual energy to bring you into the moment. For being awake, you need that. And we need to help make sexuality sacred again on our planet. It is very sacred. It's not meant to be used, you know, the way it's used. It's a private thing. It should be honored that way. It's just out there. It's become a real sick thing, you know, to distract us from what we truly are. So that's why I do that 3-day sacred sexuality program, is to help people, number one, complete lifetimes of trauma. Like I had even a Buddhist nun from Hong Kong came to one of my groups in China. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" She says, well, Fish, this poet friend of mine, had sent her. She said, and she says, "Look, here's the situation. I'm a couples counselor, but I know nothing about sex. I have to know, I came so I'd learn about sex from you." I said, "Oh, okay, good. Please welcome." And it was interesting because she did have a lot of heavy sexual trauma that she completed. And so she can really empathize. Then she could really empathize with people, in her practice and so on. So it was very beautiful, So even a monk or nun can do my program. Yeah. And, but then, as I say, I give a lot of handouts. There's a ton of handouts so that all these different practices you can do with each other to really slow everything down and bring it home into the moment. Okay. And then the core empowerment, that's the one that Papaji and my 2 Tibetan masters really wanted me to do, because it takes you, what we do is, see, every day I do this one Tibetan yoga. It's called Kumye. And it's a kind of yoga, Kumye yoga. Yeah. And it helps you discover where your karma is stuck in the body. Because remember, there's 3 aspects of a Buddha. One is the awareness, emptiness. Yeah, we never got past emptiness into the second one, which is luminous clarity. Luminous clarity is the capacity to see through the illusion of karma. Yeah. Because, see, here's the deal. This is really important too. From an absolute perspective, karma doesn't exist. Okay? It's an illusion. Okay. Yeah. But from a relative viewpoint, it's absolutely real as long as you are identified with ego. Until you drop all attachment to your ego, karma's real. And you better practice virtue like the Buddha said, because otherwise you're going to put yourself into situations that just make you go further and further to sleep. Yeah. In samsara, in the illusion of samsara, maya, all of that. Yeah. So, yeah, so there's a lot of learning that happens in core empowerment. You begin to understand the depths, with great depth, what karma really is and is not. Okay. But you've got to deal with it in a very practical manner. And I'm a really practical person. I only want to work my whole life. I only want to know about what works. What works? Yeah. What helps you wake up? What helps me wake up? What wakes me up to what I'm identified with? Because I also studied psychology, I happen to learn a lot of really interesting Western techniques as well that help take people into these experiences, that will bring up all this unconscious stuff that's been stored sometimes for lifetimes. We'll carry things over from one life to the other until we finally because remember, all karma is it's not a punishment. It's incomplete experience. That's all it is. Incomplete desires. If you didn't fulfill it last time, it's going to come back again. I remember there's a great story in Yogananda's book. Autobiography of Yogi asks his teacher, he says, "Why am I having all these dreams of palaces? I'm not interested in palaces." And his teacher says, "Well, that's because in past lifetimes, you wanted to be a prince, you wanted a palace and all these things. So now, luckily, they're just coming to you in your dreams. So you don't have to complete karma in what we call the real world. You can complete it in your dreams. You can complete it in your meditation. You can complete it with EFT. You can tap it through until that desire is complete or that resistance to karma is complete. Okay? And that's what we do in many different ways in the 6-day core empowerment retreat. And of course, I've been doing it for almost 40 years now. So, it's been refined and refined and refined. And so, yeah. And then with the addition of EFT, 15 years ago, that really, helps people whiz through so fast. Core empowerment is about really finally just completing these traumatic experiences and often desires as well. Yeah. And once you complete karma, what happens is you become empty, spacious. Better word is spacious. You feel so spacious, right? You feel the bliss that you are. You know, in Tibetan, the word for meditation is gom. Gom means getting used to. So when you meditate, you're getting used to bliss. Your ego doesn't like bliss. I want to say that again. Your ego does not like bliss. Why? Because ego is addicted to suffering. Why? Because suffering makes it feel alive. Remember, ego is only a thought. It's a compilation of thoughts that have gotten crystallized, right? When you are in bliss, ego is gone. But ego can only have the memory of what happened, but it doesn't literally experience it. That's why it's your ego, ironically, that craves enlightenment. It's your ego, because you're already enlightened. That's the joke. The joke is each one of us is already enlightened, but we're not experiencing it because we are identified with the stupid ego. Got it? It's
Right.
the ego that wants to get enlightened. Hello. So core empowerment is what helps you see that. You begin to see through the ruse of ego. You begin to see through all of your ruses. You begin to feel your bliss again. And we keep touching the very first experience on the very first day. I take you through a Zen experience, which takes you into your bliss. Okay? And then that acts as a reference point that we keep coming back to every day of the next 5 days in the course. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We're peeling away the layers of addiction to suffering. Okay? We are. Huh? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know that because it's easy to see it in other people when they've got an addiction to feeling sad, but it's difficult to recognize it in ourselves, I think.
Right. Because sometimes, you know, if you've been doing a lot of work on yourself, it gets extremely subtle. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we need gurus. Only people who are close to enlightenment need a guru. Because, see, once you've reached that level of maturity, what happens, you see, is that your ego's gotten extremely clever. Okay. It knows how to avoid it. It wants the enlightenment, but it knows how to avoid it too. Okay. So you need someone just a little bit ahead of you on the path who can just go, oh, okay, dude, do that.
Wake up.
See that? Don't identify. Hello. Yeah. So, and that's what Papaji was for me. And my other Vajrayana gurus, man, I mean, they just kicked my butt, you know? It's like, and sometimes they did it so sweetly too, you know? Everybody needs a little different form of loving at different times, you know? Sometimes you need the hug, you know, or whatever.
The hush.
Sometimes you need the sledgehammer. Just, whatever, in the moment. My gurus wanted me just only to focus on Asia. All right. But I always had in the back of my mind this knowledge. Somehow something told me intuitively that one day I'm going to be called to go back to the West again. See, I taught a lot in the West from 86 till 92. Then that was it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I didn't teach much after that. So, and I just had this intuition lately that we are on the brink of huge change on this planet. And it's time for me to give these teachings in the West, even if only for a very short time and to very few people. See, when you have a really, just one awake person will take the place of 1,000 that are asleep. Okay. And I do have the confidence that, you know, I can really help people wake up quickly, you know, those who are ready and willing and open to it, right? And I felt it's really important that I go to the West now and offer these teachings to Westerners who are really ready. And I think because the West needs a few really woken up people, a few more, to then really spread that energy out so that we can take down this whole cabal thing, if you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's time for them to go. It's time for humanity to really do a proper reset, not the kind they want for us, but the The one we're
well, they
meant to
say
be.
if I always think of the 100 monkey syndrome, where if enough
Bingo.
people become
Bingo.
conscious, then all of a sudden everybody starts to become aware. We just need enough people to get on that understanding, and then all of a sudden it just we all win.
And it
It's
only
really-
takes a very small number. It's like the American Revolution. Only 6% of people fought in that war and won the American Revolution.
Is there anything else that you would want, any last final thing that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just want to say, take advantage and join us. It's going to be amazing, absolutely amazing. And once you really see through the illusion of karma, the illusion of ego, okay, your whole life will change. You can't imagine how totally everything will change for you. Everything becomes so much easier. You'll be able to flow with the changes that are about to happen on this earth. I mean, we are going to be going through amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good to be grounded for what's coming, okay? And grounded in the truth of not who, but what you are. It'll blow your mind. It'll make it easy. It'll become like an adventure rather than a threat. You know what I mean? It's like when you're not identified, things are so much easier, period. You know?
Yeah.
It all is an adventure. I'm ready for the adventure.
If you'd like more information about Paula's retreats here on the Costa Blanca or in Italy this summer, visit purelightretreats.es. Or if you'd like to find out more about Paula's work or her books, visit drpaulahoran.com. Thank you.